Please listen carefully.
Hello, universe. Welcome to the Optimist Daily Update. I'm Summers McKay.
And I'm Kristy Jansen, and we are part of the team behind the Optimist Daily, making solutions the news. We bring you reader-funded solutions news every day in order to change the tenor of news media, social media, and the direction of your day to help make it one focused on solutions.
7 days a week, we publish positive news stories written by award-winning journalists and delivered online to your inbox and through our social channels. And also, we are sharing these solutions in a commute-worthy, walk-worthy, not being quiet or listening to silence-worthy, home office-worthy podcast. Today is Tuesday, the 31st of August, 2021. Well, Kristy, it is the last day of August. How are you doing?
I'm fine. You know, I am still trying to get my house prepared to leave it and tent it.
Right.
And it's kind of nice to have clean cupboards because I've thrown out anything that I didn't intend to actually keep. You know, It's like a good excuse. It's somewhat kind of like a spring cleaning in advance of this event, but it is a heavy lift, heavy burden.
Yeah. And you guys have lived there for a while, so it's definitely an accumulation of
We've been there for 6 years. Yeah. I mean, I found soups. There's canned soups, which are fine. You can leave those on the shelf, but they expired in like 2015. So that was when they expired. Canned soups expired.
So they moved with you from your previous destination or previous location. Yeah.
So I don't think that we're going to ever eat them. And I don't know what to do with them because I feel bad to just throw them away, but they're also not, I can't donate them to anyone. And
well, can you open them and recycle them?
Oh, I suppose I could toss the soup in the drain and then recycle the cans. Oh, that's a good plan. I appreciate that, Summers.
Yeah.
Good thinking.
Toss. All right. So solutions on the Optimist Daily, what to do with old soup. Stay tuned for this and more ideas.
Hey, you know what?
On kitchen
I have a
cleaning.
question for you, Summers. How was your silence practice? Because we didn't talk about it yesterday.
We did not talk about this yesterday. So the first time I attempted silence, it was actually because I had woken early in the morning and my daughter and my husband were not yet up. And so I thought, okay, well, I'll just sit here quietly instead of getting up and being busy. And it was really, really nice. And then I fell back to sleep. The second time I attempted silence was also, once again, when my daughter was taking a nap. And I just sat in the room where she was napping and just sat quietly and worked on my computer and didn't have to have any news or anything else going. And then the third time that I really did attempt this silence thing is that I actually let she and I play together. So she's got lots of noisy toys. We always have a smart speaker device playing something or other. And instead, I just settled down with a bunch of, wooden toys and stuffed animals. And she and I played puppets and we didn't have other distractions. So I do actually appreciate just letting quiet happen. It was nice. And I do actually feel better, not with this insistent need of always having something going on and, some background noise. How about you?
I have to say, first of all, a comment on that. I think that's such an important thing to acknowledge. I know that I find when I'm with kids, I used to always feel like I had to always be engaging in a verbal way. And it's just this constant narrating of their experience for them almost.
Right.
I have now found, as I've gotten a little bit older and wiser, now that I'm dealing with kids that are not my own, there is something about just letting them be and letting yourself be and playing alongside each other without having to comment on every single thing.
Yeah.
I think that talking all the time sometimes limits the other ways of experiencing the moment. And it's a way of just not being with the moment. It's the way. So I love that you're having that experience. I support that and I find that interesting. And for me also, what I have found is that it's this silence practice has given me permission to turn off my podcast addiction and my always having something going on in my ears and keeping me company. And it's let me be more keeping company with myself. And this is something that I have forgotten about. And it's really been 4 years of increasing addiction to podcasts and increasing addiction to listening to stories and things, which
I
I
would
don't
be
want to stop
careful
them
with the
together.
word addiction, though. I would say reliance or usage of, because
Well,
addiction, I mean, it's certainly,
it's become something that I have relied on more and more. And what it has turned off is my ability to be creative in my thinking and also self-reflective.
yeah,
And it's almost like I get anxious when I don't have that, as if I'm going to fall apart again.
right.
And having this practice where I can just be by myself with nothing to distract me, it's bolstering my knowledge that I am okay just by myself.
All on your own. Yeah. We get in these autopilots, and I know
Yeah.
for my own self, since I have committed to losing a large amount of weight right now and recommitting to my own health and wellness, is that if you're in one autopilot, right? Like you're in the autopilot of listening to podcasts all the time, or of eating food mindlessly, or of anything, you can reset to a new autopilot. You just have to do it consciously, and then that new autopilot can feel just as good, right? So Kristy's brain is a great place to hang out. It doesn't need mellifluous voices of newsmakers.
Yeah. Not always. Sometimes my brain, as I think Annie Lamott says, your mind can be a bad neighborhood you don't want to be alone in, So
Right.
that's definitely something that I've been aware of. Yeah. But
Well,
speaking
I was going to say, speaking of bad neighborhoods you don't want to be alone in, I think that's a decent segue to my story. Yeah. People have a lot of mixed feelings about cemeteries. I actually adore cemeteries. I have a very passionate affinity for going into these spaces and places that honor death and honor really life of days gone by. And some of the oldest cemeteries in this country, and actually in the world, I have visited a lot of them, and I really, really feel kind of weirdly at home in cemeteries. So when this story popped up, it was perfect for me because it takes some of the things that I really love, right? So the headline reads, "How Historic Cemeteries Help Biodiversity Thrive." Now, historical burial places often bring about thoughts of peace and death, but it turns out they actually have a lot of potential for preserving ecological systems and conserving biodiversity that has otherwise been regionally lost. Simply put, this is because cemeteries have a spiritual and sentimental meaning and are less likely to be degraded over time because they have caretakers focused on working to maintain and restore sites. Most historical burial sites were at some point protected from urban or agricultural development because you're not building on top of cemeteries or farming on top of cemeteries. So a lot of them have retained their natural vegetation, including rare and endangered plant species. So Kristy, I've got it. I know why I love cemeteries, because they're really big gardens.
That's true. Yeah. And you've got that wild vegetation going on there. Yep. And I love this. This is a great article.
Exactly. So researchers have been documenting the preservation of prairie remnants in pioneer cemeteries since the 1960s and have documented lost species as well as discovered many characteristic species in rare prairie plants. Now, this perception of tall grasses and wild vegetation might give you the sense that something is abandoned or unkempt, but that's just due to our conditioning by people now of neat manicured lawns in urban and suburban environments. There is a cemetery, it's called the Warren Ferris Cemetery in Texas. And at one point it was overrun by a century's worth of invasive plants and vandalism, but it has now been turned into an exemplary site for sustainable land management and ecological restoration. So I am intending to go visit this Warren Ferris Cemetery. It has documented 50 species, native species, including slender verbena or Texas vervain, narrow-leafed stoneseed, sunflowers, and junipers. This sounds like what I want my yard to look like. And guess what, Kristy? We're going to add in that it's a haven for pollinators, birds, bees, and bugs, butterflies, flies, mosses, and wasps.
Yeah.
So anyway, This story goes on to talk a little bit more about other steps that can be made to ensure that other cemeteries maintain biodiversity. But I think this is such a cool part. In California, there are California missions, and many of those missions have cemeteries. And I really, really liked exploring those, as well as that a lot of the missions also maintained very native look and feel to their land management. So I love this story, and I think that I have to figure out how to take my daughter and I on a day trip to Warren Ferris Cemetery, and that's
right. And
all I know.
You can wander the grounds in silence and have that reverence for nature and life.
Exactly. There's a cemetery in Santa Barbara, Kristy, over by the zoo. And I don't know if you have ever been there, but wandering through there, it's like somewhere in between the Four Seasons Hotel and the zoo. Wandering up there, it is possibly the cemetery with the best view I have ever seen.
Oh, interesting.
It's gorgeous.
It's true. A lot of cemeteries have amazing views. When I lived up in Berkeley, there was a beautiful cemetery in Oakland that I used to go to and just be in. So
I know that one. I know that one as well from my Berkeley days. So
yeah.
Anyway, for those of us who love cemeteries and all the other cemetery gardeners, please let us know your favorite cemetery and cemetery view.
So I'm picturing summer's like the alternate to you, just wandering in reverence in this natural world, and it's like kind of the counter opposite of my story, which is
what are you my story?
The headline which lit me up today actually reads, "Nightclub in Glasgow will harness energy from dancers." And again, I'm on this kick of how can we capture energy just that's happening, or electricity is being generated just through normal life. Like I think last week we talked about the bike,
the Peloton,
the attachment to the the attachment that captures the energy that as people are exercising on their bikes, and how that would make me want to exercise on a stationary bike in ways that I wouldn't otherwise want to do that, right? Well, this article talks about Glasgow, which Scotland's one of the more progressive places when it comes to moving towards renewable energy and getting its electricity from renewable sources. And it's also going to be the location of the COP26 climate conference, which is going to be taking place in October this year, starting October 31st, October and November. And so that means over the next few months that Glasgow and Scotland is going to be putting even more focus on creative environmental initiatives to spotlight as the city becomes the focus of the environmental movement. So one of those interesting initiatives, which has been recently unveiled, focuses on the legendary Glasgow club SWG3, which is going to be trialing and testing out an innovative scheme. What it does is it generates energy from the dance floor in a bid to power the venue more sustainably. The system is called body heat. And what it does is it harnesses the energy created by staff and revelers inside the venue and converts it into an energy source that runs the heating and cooling outlets. And it's a scheme and this is a scheme in the British style of using the word scheme. It's a plan, a program that's it's part of the UN-backed summit, and it's being piloted as the world's first instance of this type of using body heat. And I'm a little bit my dystopian brain, like I think about the Matrix, which is what we were doing, but just like the actual body heat processes was being harvested by the computers in the Matrix. But on a more positive side, it's located in a club, which at some point in the future, hopefully we can go back to.
Exactly. It's predicated on gathering together.
Predicated on being safely together again. But this energy can be harnessed and it can be converted into the electricity needed to keep on the lights, to keep the music playing, to manage the heating and cooling systems. And it can also be stored in batteries to be drawn from on demand. And based on previous attendance figures, SWG3 estimates that the project will enable it to save 70 tons of carbon emissions per year. I'm not sure what that's based on, but that's a great, that's tremendous.
These people really know how to dance.
Well, and you'd be dancing. So I think dance the night away. It's
Yep.
also great for your brain and for
Yeah.
your body. It's like it touches all those positive emotions also.
Exactly. Well, I love this idea. And, obviously the progressive nature of Scotland and their energy efforts are really inspiring. And maybe at some point they can have a way to harness toddler dance parties at home for all of us who have no intention of setting foot into a dance club. But I think that's such a fun solution.
And I think it actually uses sort of the heating and cooling. It uses like a passive cooling system where it pumps the heat down into the earth, which then gets cooled and brought back in. And that's part of how so it's kind of using technology, which we already have. It's not like a new technology. It's just using it with intention. And anyway, what else is on the headlines today?
Well, in addition to some great dancing and cemetery adventuring, there is a sustainable wood alternative made from kombucha waste.
Yes, use your scobies.
Yes.
All that extra
used for all those scobies. Czech School will be home to the first 3D printed parkour playground. Aiming for 10,000 steps a day. Science says fewer may be enough. Interested in reading that one because right now I'm clocking about 13 to 17,000 steps a day. Charlotte, North Carolina launches a peer-run alternative to psychiatric hospitalization. What else, Kristy? What else do we have?
Well, there's an article about how tiny wasps could solve the U.S. invasive beetle problem. That's interesting. The National Trust is going to adopt siestas due to rising temperatures. I guess it'll help us shut down electricity in the middle of the day. That might be good. An online game that places the world's future in your hands.
In mine?
And 7,
let's do it.
Well, in all of our hands, I think, yeah. And then 7, men's health issues that their support system should understand. So these are health issues for men that friends of men should understand in terms of helping the men in our lives stay healthy.
Right.
And that's it for today's Optimist Daily update. Thank you so much for listening. We promise to keep sharing positive solution-based stories, helping you get in touch with the current events in a way that's going to be positive and chart new paths for all of us. And if you haven't already signed up, please consider becoming an emissary on the optimistdaily.com, and starting at just $5 a month, you can help support reader-funded independent journalism and be a part of the solution-changing consciousness that addresses our world's biggest challenges with this problem-solving mindset.
Everybody, let's keep the Optimist Daily free to all who need it, supported by those who can. Kristy, guess what? We made our numbers for August.
Yay!
We have more revenue this month than we did last. We're continuing to grow. Thank you, everyone, for helping us continue to grow. Yeah. We are grateful for you. And tomorrow, it's September. Let's do this. We'll see you then.